I stood on the porch, leaning slightly against the old wooden railing that Daniel had promised to fix so many times but never did. The morning sun was bright, casting long shadows of the oak tree that had stood guard over this house for more than 30 years. I watched my son, Daniel, moving briskly around the car parked in the driveway, his hands deftly strapping suitcases to the roof rack, his voice occasionally rising above the chirping of birds as he called out to his wife, Claire, Claire was, fussing over their daughter, Emily, making sure her hat was tied just right and her small backpack was zipped. Emily, just 5 years old, twirled in her little pink dress, her pigtails bouncing with each spin. She kept asking about the ocean. About dolphins, about ice cream cones bigger than her head. The excitement in her voice was infectious, but in me, it only deepened the echo of loneliness that had started forming long before this day. Daniel finally slammed the trunk shut, a satisfied look on his face. He turned toward me, jogging up the steps and wrapped me in a quick hug. His embrace felt hurried, as though he was already halfway to the beach in his mind. I hugged him back tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with sunblock. For a moment, I closed my eyes and he was a little boy again, running up the porch steps after scraping his knee, looking for comfort in my arms. Mom. Thank you so much for watching Max, Daniel said, his voice filled with an easy gratitude that somehow felt shallow today. I know it's last minute, but Claire really needed this family trip. And you know, Emily has been talking about the beach for weeks? I nodded, forcing my lips into a gentle smile. Of course, dear. You all go and have a wonderful time, I replied. Though the words tasted bittersweet as they left my tongue, Max, their golden retriever, stood next to me, his tongue lolling out, tail wagging furiously. I looked down at him, his brown eyes gleaming with unknowing joy. I bent down and scratched behind his ears, whispering softly, "Looks like it's just you and me, buddy." Claire came up to hug me too, a quick, polite squeeze. She thanked me again, but her eyes were already on Emily, making sure she didn't trip on the steps. I watched her, remembering my own young motherhood days spent running after Daniel, wiping ice cream off his chin, staying up at night when he had nightmares. Emily ran up and wrapped her little arms around my legs. "Bye, Grandma." "We're gonna bring you a shell?" she squealed, her voice bubbling with innocence and excitement. I laughed softly, running a hand over her soft hair, savoring this fleeting connection. "I'll be waiting, sweetheart," I whispered, though I knew that shell might never arrive, and if it did, it would probably be handed to me in a rush before she darted off to her next adventure. Finally, they all piled into the car. Daniel turned the ignition, the engine roared to life, and Claire waved from the passenger seat. I waved back, my arm heavy as if it carried all the unspoken words I could never say how I missed being needed. How the empty rooms in the house sometimes felt like they were closing in on me. How I missed the sound of Daniel calling me Mom, like he used to when he needed me for everything. As the car disappeared around the corner, the sound of their laughter drifted away into the summer air. I stood on the porch a few moments longer, the leash heavy in my hand, Max pressing against my leg. The silence that settled felt deafening. It wrapped around my heart like a tight rope, reminding me that while my son and his family were off making sunlit memories, I had been left behind, not even as a guest, but as the caretaker of their dog. I turned and walked slowly back inside, each step echoing through the quiet hallway. The walls, once filled with Daniel's childhood scribbles and school awards, now felt like museum pieces, frozen in time. I looked down at Max again, his tail wagged, eyes expectant. He didn't understand why I looked so sad. In that moment, I realized he was the only one who would sit beside me, no questions asked, no conditions set, with a sigh. I clipped on his leash, my heart heavy and hollow. As we stepped into the backyard, I forced another smile and whispered to myself, at least someone still wants my company. That night, after feeding Max and washing the few dishes from my simple dinner, I found myself wandering the house aimlessly. I paused in front of the family photos lining the hallway, Daniel's first day of kindergarten, his awkward teenage Years with braces, his college graduation where I stood next to him beaming, as though all the struggles and sacrifices had finally paid off. In each photo, my hand was always there, resting proudly on his shoulder, grounding him, reminding him he wasn't alone. But tonight, as I touched the cold glass frames, it felt like I was looking at someone else's life. The phone on the kitchen counter stayed silent. No text messages asking if I had eaten dinner, no photos of Emily playing on the sand. I had half expected at least a quick call, something small to say, "We're thinking of you." But nothing came. Max followed me from room to room, his nails tapping softly on the wooden floors. I finally settled in my favorite armchair by the window, the one Daniel used to curl up in when he had the flu, begging me to stay close. I wrapped a knitted blanket around my shoulders even though it wasn't cold. Max rested his head on my lap, his warm breath slowly easing the tightness in my chest. Outside. The world had already gone to sleep. The streetlights painted lonely shadows across the yard. The moon looked impossibly distant tonight, a pale reminder of all the places I had never gone, all the moments I had postponed for later, so I could be there for my son. My mind wandered to the day Daniel left for college. I had packed his bags, labeled each box carefully, hidden small notes in his socks and inside his textbooks. I stood by his dorm room door long after he hugged me goodbye, hoping he would turn back for one last wave. He didn't, and now, years later, here I was again standing metaphorically at that door, waiting for a moment that would never come. Tears slipped silently down my cheeks as I absent-mindedly stroked Max's head. I realized I had built my entire world around Daniel, his needs, his dreams, his happiness. And in doing so, I had slowly forgotten what I needed, what I loved, what made me happy. Max shifted and licked my hand as if trying to say, "I'm here." I managed a small, sad smile, grateful for his quiet presence. As the hours dragged on, I felt a restless energy building inside me. Something inside me was stirring, a long-buried whisper asking if this was really all there was left. Was I doomed to simply wait at the edges of my son's life, always on call, never truly seen? The ache in my chest wasn't just loneliness. It was a sharp, cutting realization. I had given everything and lost parts of myself along the way. In the stillness of that pre-dawn hour, a wild, almost reckless thought flashed through my mind. I looked over at the dusty stack of travel magazines, piled in the corner of my living room. They were old, their edges curled and yellowing. Once upon a time, they had been my little escape, my secret doorway to a world I thought I'd explore one day when Daniel was older, when money wasn't tight, when I finally had time. My fingers itched to touch them. I stood and shuffled over to the stack, my hands trembling slightly as I flipped through pages filled with turquoise seas, palm trees swaying under golden sunsets, and smiling women holding coconuts on bright white sands. Each page felt like a forgotten dream calling me back. My eyes landed on a spread about the Maldives. I traced a photo of a wooden hut standing over water so clear you could see every ripple beneath. My heart began to beat faster. I imagined myself there, feet dipped in warm water, hair tousled by ocean breeze, nobody needing me, nobody asking me to stay home and wait. Before I could second-guess myself, I grabbed my phone. My fingers moved quickly, almost as if possessed. I typed flights to Maldives and watched as options flooded the screen. My heart pounded like a drum. My practical voice tried to interrupt. What about Max? What about the house? What will Daniel say? But another voice, quieter yet stronger, whispered, "What about you?" Tears blurred my eyes as I clicked book. Now, with each detail I filled out, my soul felt a little lighter. When I finally hit confirm, a rush of adrenaline and disbelief washed over me. I had done it. I was really going. I looked at Max, who sat patiently, tilting his head as if trying to understand this sudden burst of energy. I knelt down and hugged him fiercely, feeling my heart beat wildly against his soft fur. "Looks like it's our turn for an adventure," I whispered. my voice cracking between laughter and tears. Asterisk, for the first time in years, decades, even I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. Not the mother, not the dog sitter, not the background figure. Just me, a woman who still had dreams, who still craved sunrises in new places and the salty kiss of ocean winds. Asterisk, as the first light of morning broke through the window, turning the walls golden, I stood tall and took a deep breath. The woman in the reflection of the glass door looked different. She looked alive. And for once she wasn't waiting for permission from anyone to live her life. Asterisk. The day of my departure arrived sooner than I could have imagined. Standing in front of my bedroom mirror, I hardly recognized the woman staring back at me. My suitcase sat on the bed, packed with clothes that had collected dust for years, bright dresses I had bought on a whim but never worn, swimsuits I always thought were for Sunday, and a wide-brimmed straw hat that still had its price tag. Asterisk, as I zipped the suitcase shut, I felt an electric buzz of anticipation run through me. For so long I had packed bags for Daniel's soccer games, school trips, college move-ins, always waving him off, always coming home to an empty house afterward. This time I was the one going. Asterisk, I called the neighbor's daughter to watch Max, leaving her a long list of instructions about his walks, his favorite treats, and the exact way he liked his ears scratched. When she arrived, she smiled at me with that gentle understanding only young women sometimes have, as if she could already see the freedom shimmering around me. Risk, are you excited? She asked, her eyes sparkling. Asterisk, I laughed, feeling the sound echo inside me, surprised at how alive it sounded. More than I can say, I replied, hugging Max tightly before handing over the leash. He wagged his tail as if to say, go, it's your turn now. Asterisk, when I finally stepped out with my suitcase, I paused at the front gate. The garden looked the same as it always had, the rose bush I'd planted when Daniel was born, the worn stepping stones he used to jump across as a boy. But today, it all felt like a chapter closing rather than a prison holding me back. Asterisk, the taxi arrived, and I slid into the back seat, my fingers gripping the edge of my seat as we pulled away. As the house shrank in the distance, I felt a surge of guilt, then relief, then pure exhilaration. Asterisk, at the airport, I was just another traveler among many, no longer Daniel's mother, no longer the ever-available caretaker. I carried my own passport, my own dreams, my own heartbeat. I moved through the security lines and departure halls as if I had been reborn. Asterisk. When I boarded the plane and found my seat by the window, I looked out as the plane sped down the runway. With a sudden, gentle lift, we left the ground, and I felt my heart soar along with the aircraft. The view below became a patchwork of tiny fields and rivers, dissolving into clouds. Asterisk. I closed my eyes and felt tears slide down my cheeks. Not tears of sorrow, but of release. All the years of silent sacrifices and invisible tears finally washed away at 30,000 feet above the world. Asterisk. Hours later, I stepped off the plane into air that was heavy with salt and warmth. The Maldives unfolded before me like a painting. Shimmering turquoise lagoons, sugar-white sands, and palm trees swaying lazily under the sun. My breath caught in my throat. Asterisk. I was here. I had arrived not just in the Maldives, but at a place inside myself I had never known. A place where I wasn't waiting, wasn't serving, wasn't worrying, just being. Asterisk. Ease. On my first morning, I woke to the sound of waves brushing gently against the stilts of my overwater bungalow. The curtains swayed with the ocean breeze, and sunlight flooded the room in golden ripples. Asterisk. I stepped out onto the deck and dipped my feet into the cool, clear water. Tiny fish darted around, shimmering like jewels beneath me. The sky stretched wide and endless, the horizon melting seamlessly into the sea. Asterisk. I sat there for what felt like hours, feeling the sun warm my face and shoulders. Each breath felt deeper, fuller, as if I had been starved for air all these years, and only now was finally learning how to breathe. Asterisk. Later, I walked along the beach, the soft sand molding around my feet. Couples strolled hand in hand, families built sandcastles, but I felt no pang of loneliness, only a quiet, surprising joy. I watched a young woman dive into the waves, laughing as she emerged, hair slicked back, eyes shining with wild freedom. I realized with a soft smile that I felt the same, a secret joy that bubbled up from somewhere deep and hidden, in the evening. I found a small cafe perched above the water, lanterns swaying gently in the breeze. I ordered a coconut, sipped it slowly, and watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in pinks, oranges, and deep purples. As darkness settled, a soft music began to play, and I watched people dance barefoot on the sand. A young man offered me his hand, and for a moment I hesitated, then I took it. We danced under the stars, the cool sand beneath our feet, the waves a gentle chorus beside us. When the music ended, I looked up at the sky, feeling tears slip down my cheeks again. But this time they were tears of wonder, of gratitude, of rediscovery. I realized then that I had been living as a shadow in my own life, always at the edges of everyone else's story. But here, under this infinite sky, I felt seen by the ocean, by the stars, and most importantly, by myself. I returned to my bungalow that night and stood on the deck one last time, listening to the waves whisper below. I closed my eyes and promised myself that this wouldn't be the last adventure, that I would no longer wait for someone to hand me permission to live. As I lay in bed, sleep pulled me under like a gentle tide. For the first time in decades, I didn't dream of my son or the past. I dreamt of endless oceans, wild winds, and all the tomorrows I had yet to claim, and in those dreams I was finally beautifully free.